So everybody, we're into session. Is this the 5th session I think we've had in the Data Users Conference, which means we have 7 sessions to go. This session is going to be done by Susana Privett. She's going to do census basics and show us really, if this is aimed at for those of you who are having difficult accessing census data in data.census.gov and just want sort of a refresher or a way to figure out how to access data a little bit better or feel more confident about using it, that site. This is kind of aimed for you and for me, because despite everything, and I've been through lots of sessions, I too am still having difficulties pulling data. And so I just want to, let you know that you should feel okay to ask questions and work through this. Go ahead and post questions in the chat if you need to. We will try to save the chat and post that later for people if that helps. But I think right now we have 39 participants. I think it's small enough that if you have a question while Susana is presenting, go ahead and ask. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Susan.
Okay. So let's see. I don't think I can share, but so if you were on the session yesterday for the tribal data, some of this will be repetitive for you because I kind of, every session that we do at this point, we kind of have to go through the steps because we know it's new for everyone, and some folks are having issues, some are not, and that case. So so it will be, we'll just be looking at other geographies instead. And so we data.census.gov was established to have a central place for our data because traditionally we've had our data in different areas on the Census Bureau site. Different branches were disseminating the data themselves on their own pages. And so you had to go to different places in order to get that data. And even though a lot of data was on American Fact Finder, you still had to go other places for other data. So we are working to have one place for all the data. And I think that eventually when the kinks and everything get worked out for data.census.gov, I think you'll like it. We just have growing pains, and I do ask your patience with that. It is frustrating sometimes. And obviously with any new product, sometimes things don't go the way you think they're going to go. And so, we plan for things to be a certain way and then they don't turn out that way. So I hope that at least all of you have been on data.census.gov at least one time, just to kind of check it out. There are several places that I'm going to show you to go to get answers, because sometimes if you can't get through to me or to someone else at the Census Bureau, you're going to want to look at, hang on just a second, let me see if I can share this with you. Okay. You're going to want to get some answers. And so we do release things that are happening with data.census.gov. And we here in-house, we have meetings every other week about the new things that are happening, issues that may have come up, how we're fixing things, just to kind of stay on top of it, because we do get calls, obviously, asking those questions. So please don't hesitate to call me or email me if you have any issues. And I'd be happy, if I can't answer it, I would be happy to connect you with someone who can. But I do, before I get started, want to mention a couple of things. Two apps I know for sure that will still be around, because eventually some of the other pages from other branches will disappear, and other apps or tools that we've had will disappear. I don't have a complete list of that now, but for sure, quick facts. If anyone has ever been on census.gov, on the main page, you can access that particular tool. It's been around for a while. They've made some changes to it, and I think it's better than it's been before. But that's a great place, not only as a gateway to get to data in general, but to find a number that you may need, and just to kind of get in and get out. And then our Roam app, and I'm hoping that some of you have seen Roam or are familiar with Roam. That is a tool that originally was in-house for us to use to do our job. And then eventually they decided that we should share it. Although actually I was already sharing it because I felt like it was a tool that data users would really, really enjoy, because it's interactive. You can actually click on a map and actually see data come up on the map. And so I was really excited when that first came out. And obviously, that's where we want to be one day in the future. So with that said, let's go to data.census.gov. I don't know if some of you are following along. Everything that I'll be doing is pretty simple, pretty basic. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So of course, the first thing is that we have a separate site for data.census.gov, as opposed to going to find Fact Finder on census.gov. And so that's intentional, again, with us wanting a kind of a one-stop shop for you to go to find the data that you need. So that's one difference right off the bat. Then when you pull it up, you actually see that it's very minimal. Again, that's different from before. And that is to make it, obviously, we're all pretty computer literate these days and have an understanding how things work on other applications or websites. So we are following that same, that lead, and trying to make it more intuitive. Although being a new tool, sometimes until you kind of understand it, it's not very intuitive. So right in the middle of the page is a box, a search box that you can type in whatever you're looking for. If you want the population for Albuquerque, you can type that in and you'll get some tables and some data right away. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can put in a topic. Maybe you're not sure if we have something available. You can always just put in a topic and hit search and then look at those results. The same for maps. If you're looking for a map of a particular area, you can always just, again, put that in and hit search and get some results that you can take a look at. Now, a lot of what comes up is based on really popularity of different topics and tables. People go online looking for certain topics, and we know which ones are more popular. And so those tend to be the ones that show up first, so that you know, you have those tables to look at, and then you can go down further. The same thing with the maps, things that are more common that people are looking for under a specific subject. Those are the tables that'll probably come up first. So that's kind of the rhyme or the reason to that. So as you scroll down on the page, you'll see an area that's labeled tables so that you can kind of get a feel for what the tables look like now as compared to Fact Finder. Then as you scroll a little further, you see a couple of columns here with data profiles, maps and visualizations, industry and NAICS codes, which I'm sure Andy spoke about in an earlier session. And so this is to kind of highlight some of the things if you're not sure what this tool can do. They kind of added these here so that you can kind of see examples of what you could actually ask for. And then to actually click and kind of get a sample of what something would look like. Then as you scroll down further, profiles. I don't know if any of you have seen other sites that have done something similar to this. I've seen other sites that actually have a lot of data, and it's a profile of an area that includes maps, not just numbers, but graphs, charts, things like that. So we do that now and include profiles. So you could put in, that you want a profile for New Mexico or California or something like that to kind of get started and see what's available that will come up for choices. And that's kind of a one-stop place for a particular area if you're trying to look at those numbers. Then microdata, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. One thing that I think that people might not understand about our tables at this point is that they are predetermined tables, usually no more than 3 topics. And I know that in Fact Finder, people would put several things that they were searching for and would call me and say, I can't find a table that has all of these subjects. And that's because all of our tables are a combination of no more than 3 topics. So it searches for the table that's closest to what you're asking. So I've always suggested that data users try to put in no more than 3 items to search for. And then it will try to search for that table. And sometimes you have much more success with that. Now, I can tell you that we are working on eventually allowing you to build tables. So that is coming. I don't know when, but I do know that they're working on it. And that makes me excited that you can actually take the data and build a table from that just the way you want it. So that will be hopefully in the near future. I don't know when for sure, but I know that they are working on that. So that's a change that's coming down the road. Now, I want to point out, I mentioned this yesterday in the session, and I'm mentioning it today, and I usually mention it many times during a presentation because I can't emphasize it enough that they are building this for you, and I want it to be what you need as a data user. So please, any feedback, whether you like something, you don't like something, you have a suggestion for topics or whatever you can think of, please do not hesitate to send feedback. They really, really want to hear from you. And so I can suggest all day, but if you suggest, you will be heard. So please do that. Now, I want to point out frequently asked questions, and a lot of times we know websites have these, but again, because we are still working on this site, it's really important to look at frequently asked questions because sometimes your answer will be there. And so make sure that you know that that's there, that you can use that. Also, release notes. Again, as I was saying, we have meetings about changes, updates, and things that are being corrected. And you can actually see these are updated. These were from October. And so you can go through and see what's changed, what's coming. Maybe you weren't familiar with something. So they cover a lot of different topics that might be helpful to you in what you're doing, and explains features. So this is also a good place to go. I myself have used this. Um, we were trained basically to, with this new database, to read through and sort of teach ourselves some of these features, because they were emphasizing the fact that it's much more user friendly. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I've learned in using this, and some of the things my coworkers also have learned or experienced as well. So again, please don't hesitate to look at those, because that will help you. Now, I like to share with data users the fact that I feel that using the advanced search link here at the front, um, I believe that that gives you much more control in your searches. Again, you can still type in whatever you'd like, but sometimes you know exactly what you're looking for. And advanced search gives you the option of using filters so that you can drill down and really get to what you're looking for. So I'm going to click on advanced search. Again, this to me is very similar to Fact Finder, and I find comfort in that. I mentioned that yesterday, that it sort of reminds me of the way, for those of you that used or remember Fact Finder, the way it was set up with the filters on the left, and going through and selecting what you need. So I do find some comfort in that, that I'm kind of familiar with that setup already. Now, you can still up at the top type in a table ID. I was trying one yesterday, and I'm not sure why it wouldn't come up, but I called someone this morning, and I'm waiting on a call back for that question. But I also suggest, when you're looking for tables, that you select your geography first. We were actually trained on Fact Finder to select a topic first, and then your geography or something else. But because I talk to all of you, I understand that you have frustration sometimes when you get a response and you're not sure what that means or why you even got that response. And one is, when you select topics first, and then your geography, sometimes you get a response that that is not available or there's no data, when you actually know that there is. And so that's very frustrating. So if you select your geography first and then your topic, then you know that whatever comes up is what is available at that level of geography that you selected. So sometimes if you are picking your topic first and you're not getting something, try picking the geography first, the geography level, and then going to your topics. Now, years, if you already know the vintage of the data that you're looking for, then you can definitely zoom in on selecting a year. Surveys, again, if you already know the source of the data that you need, you can go in here and select that. The codes are for the NAICS codes, and primarily for business data. So if that's what you're looking for, then you can kind of zoom in this way. But I am going to go to geography. And so again, this is very similar to Fact Finder for me, where you have your list of different geography levels, and you can just scroll down to see the level that you're wanting or see what's available. And so, again, I'm trying to go slow. I don't want to make anybody dizzy. Um, so you can see that there's quite a choice when it comes to the different geography levels. But let's just go to place for now for an example, which is a city, a town, a village, a borough, and it's called place within our terminology. So I'm going to select place. Then you get another column that pops up, and in this case, it's asking, you're looking for a place, a city, so where is that city? So I'm going to scroll down and let's select New Mexico. So here, just like in Fact Finder, you can go to all places in New Mexico, or you can go through and pick whatever cities you're looking for. Let me just select a couple here. I was trying to go with places I've been, but that's not necessarily the case sometimes. Let's see here. So as I scroll down, you'll see that the list will stop, and then you're going to have to let it load again. I think some people that I've talked to find that kind of annoying. I'm not sure if that's something that down the road will be different, but for now, it's not getting stuck. It's just reloading the list. So as you continue to scroll down, and you get to the bottom of that section of the list, it will reload again. So that's a feature that was not the same in the other, in Fact Finder. I'm not familiar with this. I'm just going to take a chance on these two here. Let's see. Okay. So that's as far as I'm going. Now I'm going to topics. So I'm just going to say population and people, and then it gives me a list under population and people to select from. So you'll see that some of these are grayed out, so that is not available for the geographies that I've selected. So when you see an area that's grayed out, if you've already selected your geography first, as you move through your choices, if it's grayed out, then it's not available at that level of geography. So let's just say population and people, and I'm going to stop there. Now, in Fact Finder, we had a box in the top left corner of the window where everything that you selected would drop like a shopping cart. So now with data.census.gov, all of that goes in this bottom bar here. And so if it's in that bottom bar, that's what it's going to search for. Now, I mentioned the feedback, and here they make it really easy for you to do feedback because they have a little place, a link here that you can click on for feedback. But for now, I'm going to get rid of that so that you can see that this is where the filters that we've selected are going to reside. So I'm going to hit search. So based on what I selected, it's giving me, because it's pretty broad, population and people, it's giving me a list of tables. And each one of these gives you a lot of information about the table as far as the name of the table, the survey or program, the years that the data is available for, and then the table ID or table number. And again, I always tell everyone, if you're going to look at a table more than once, make note of that table number or table ID so that next time you can plug it in and get to that table much sooner. than having to go through and find it again through the filters. So you can see here that there is a good list of tables listed, but then as I scroll down, there's a tab here where you can view all of the tables based on what I selected. And there's over 1,000 tables here that I could look at, since my request was kind of general, kind of broad. So there's quite a few tables that I can take a look at. Then as you scroll down further, there are maps. So far, I believe there was only one time that I had an exception. Usually there's a map associated, and here in this case there is, to every table that they have listed. And so here you see, as we scroll down looking at the map list, that again, there's over 1,000 maps available. But keep in mind that these maps, sometimes based on the data, may not be as detailed as you might think they are. Some with more data will have more detail to them. So sometimes that might be useful to you and sometimes they may not, but there is a map for each one of these tables. Then we scroll further down and you see pages, which I get asked this by people, why have this section? What's the purpose of it? But I personally like the idea of having this, especially because I do a lot of workshops for grant writers. And so I know that they are having to find a lot of data, understand the data, because the funder may ask for certain things, and if they don't understand what they're asking, they could actually get the wrong data added. So the pages are articles or places, release information about data that might be helpful to you in whatever your project is or you're needing the data for. If you're needing a better understanding, some of these may be helpful to you. So sometimes if you're not sure about some of the tables, you may look at some of the pages related to these tables and see what they say about the data. And as you can see here, they have quite a number of pages about population and people here. So over 22,000 pages. So I don't know about going through all of that, but they are there for you anyway. So let me go back up and let's select one of these tables. Any questions so far on what I've said about this page, these results? Sorry.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dr. Tara Lopez, and I'm a sociologist at Northern New Mexico College. And it references one of the topics, or the geographic selections. There were 2 geographic selections for zip code. Is there any difference? Because one said zip code 5-digit and the other one said 5-digit zip code. Like, is there some kind of difference in the data that's going to pop up if I choose that geographic selection?
So zip codes, those boundaries, that belongs to the Postal Service. And so we try to use those boundaries as well for data dissemination. Now, sometimes because they belong to the post office, they can change those boundaries at any time. So they don't really have to let us know or actually ask anybody about it. If they need to change or create new zip codes, they can do so, or split areas. And so sometimes we find that we may not have all of the information for the boundaries that they're using. Maybe they have made some changes. And so they create ZICTAs as sort of an alternative. And sometimes you'll be able to access both. So there may be some slight differences. In the ones that I've looked at, I really didn't see any differences in the data. But there's a possibility that there could be some differences in that.
So Tara, this is Susan. Just a real quick note on zip code data. In New Mexico, there are several towns that do not receive mail, and so they're not included in a zip code. And in fact, they pick their mail up in the zip code in another county. And I'm thinking up in northern New Mexico, there are several places where they actually pick their mail up where, so when you pull zip code data, it represents where people live and not necessarily where they actually pick up their mail. So somebody may think I'm in zip code 87 and all New Mexico zip codes start with an 87 or an 88. But they'll be confused because they know they have to drive across county lines to pick up their mail code. And the question becomes, in the ZICTA or in the zip code, where is the population really counted? It's not necessarily where people really pick up their mail. So just a word of warning that zip code data is problematic in a lot of places in New Mexico.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And not just in New Mexico. I mean, there's other places too that have those issues as well. Okay, so any other questions? And I'll continue.
Yeah, there's a real quick one, and I think you're about to show it. Are there any shortcuts, ways to save searches which include information frequently searched for same geographies?
Yes, yes, we'll go through that here in just a second. Yes, absolutely. Now, I do want to show in this particular search, up at the top right corner, you see a box. Sometimes there'll be several boxes based on what your request is. So this is actually showing you that there is a profile for one of the geographies that I selected. And in this case, this is talking about it being a CDP. And so you can click on that to go to the profile. And so it'll show a map with the area highlighted that it's talking about. And as I said, this is a great place to get a lot of basic data about an area in one place. So it gives you different statistics, population, household income, poverty, education. And then as you scroll down, it gives it to you in different sections. So people in population, veterans, language spoken at home. And for those of you that are familiar with our data profile tables, so this data for the most part is coming from those tables. So when you pull those individually, this is coming from those tables. And then you just continue to scroll down. There's health, education, business and economy. And then some business related data or employment, income. So you can see there's quite a bit of information about an area. So whenever you do, if you are just looking to see a profile, sort of an overall, I lost my train of thought, an overall grouping of data for an area, this would be a good place to start with the profiles. And then there are hyperlinks talking about the table where the data comes from and the source of the data. And so they're always going to use the latest data first. So again, a great place. And here it lists the different sections that we see here in case you want to go straight to one of those sections on the left-hand side of the page. So again, I think they're doing a great job with this, and I think that there'll be some improvements to this in the future. They've talked about that. And if you have any suggestions on how to improve these, once again, please don't hesitate to let them know. So let me go back. So now I'm back to the tables. So let's just go to the first table. It's a subject table for age and gender. So here we have the one of the geographies that I selected. Scroll over. So you can see that you'll need to scroll to see the whole table, and then scrolling up and down. Now, these tables were built to be not so much looking like the tables that we had in FactFinder, where they looked okay in a PDF sometimes, but if you download it into Excel, then the table looked much different than what you had seen on screen. So these are based more on cells. So when you download this data, it's going to look exactly as you see it on the screen in Excel. And so just to sort of keep a consistency there. So I prefer this myself. I wish we'd been doing this all along. But so now, let's see. You can see the different vintages here at the top of the page. Next to product, there's a arrow that you can click on for a drop-down menu. So if this was the table that you needed, but now you want to go back and compare, you don't have to go back and try to redo everything. You can just select this. And on FactFinder, that used to be on the left side, kind of underneath the filter section, where you could switch the different vintages for the data. And then you can customize. Now on FactFinder, that was always showing above the table on the page. And so here you don't have to see it if you don't want it or don't need it, but you can click on Customize Table, and then you have your choices here. And again, I keep referring to FactFinder, but very similar to FactFinder. So your geography, here I just have one geography, but you can switch to change the vintage here. The topics, if you decide this isn't what you're looking for, you can select topics and switch the topics. The surveys, if you know for sure that this is ACS data and you actually wanted 2010 data or some other source, you could select that here. Codes, again, for the NAICS codes. Margin of error, you can click on that and it takes away those columns. So sometimes when you have a larger table and right now you're really just interested in looking at the numbers, it does make it a little easier to look at if you take out the margin of error. You can transpose. This works really well when I find when it's not a big table or there are a lot of choices, it just seems to be better. But again, you can still do it regardless of the tables. Restore, when you want to just kind of go back to where you were, take out what you had had. Download, print. Originally, we were having issues with printing. And we still, to a point, have issues with printing. And that is a question that comes up every time we have a update meeting about the printing. We hear you. A lot of users are upset about that, but they are working on that. And hopefully sooner than later. But under download, that button, before you try to download, it actually allows you to select all the vintages that you were needing at one time, and either the CSV format or PDF before you go to download, so that you don't have to go back and forth and download each year or whatever the case may be, or you're only needing 2 years, whatever. So you're able to do that with this download button. Print. Now, they added this message here because at first it wasn't clear that there's still an issue with the printing. So they will only print the first page of data. So obviously, if it's a lot of data and a huge table, you might not get to print everything that you need. And so here they give you the option to export to Excel. Personally, I prefer moving to Excel first and then printing, so that I can modify and save the table in a lot of cases, and print from there. And I was suggesting that in the beginning when we weren't able to print anything really. There were a lot of issues, more than now. And so, but now they've added this note, so I'm happy to see that. So it's not so confusing. So just remember that. Really, just move over to Excel and then print whatever data you need. It'll be less frustrating for you. And then the map button for this particular table. So in this case, for this table, it's outlining the area, the geography area. And so you can zoom out, zoom in. There's not as much detail in this particular map as there is in others. You can change some of the variables, the place, the vintage from this window if you'd like to. And the same here on the left side, you can do that. And then you can go back and view the table. If you want to go back and forth, you can do that here. So again, some maps will be much more detailed right off the bat based on whatever the table is offering, more than others. So I'm going to use my browser button to go back. Another thing that I need to mention is that sometimes you will experience a glitch if you're using the browser back button. Most of the time now it works. In the beginning it was sporadic, and even now you still get an occasion where you'll use your browser back button and it won't go where you were previously. So I just want you to know that up front. When you are in this view, you get a list of all the tables that came up for whatever it was you selected. And they're here on the left side, and you'll just scroll down. And then if you still don't see the table that you saw before, or that you want to see what other choices there are, you'll click load more. Now, I've gotten the comments from a lot of data users that this is aggravating, and I understand that. But this is how it's working at this time. I'm not sure if this will change. This may be one of the things that will change, but it's probably not at the top of the list, I would guess, of things that they're updating on data.census.gov right now. But if this is something that's annoying to you, please send in your feedback on this, that you'd rather just be able to scroll all the way down the list without having to continue to load. Any questions on any of this so far?
There was a quick question. What browser works best with this?
That's great, because I was just going to say that. I realized I meant to say that a while ago, and then when I was talking about the browser back button, I realized. So Chrome is the browser that's ideal for this particular site. I use Mozilla probably more than any other browser, and I haven't had any trouble in that. But again, the creators are saying that the most ideal browser is Chrome for you to use on this. So I'm going to bow to them, but I have had good experiences with Mozilla on this. Okay, so let's go back. Let me select a different table here so I can talk about some other things. Educational attainment. So while I'm still in the map view, I just wanted to show you, I selected another table and it really did not change the map. And this is what I'm talking about, that sometimes the maps will have more detail than others. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that there. But let me go back to all. So clicking all brings you back to the big list of tables. So again, this is pretty general. So why don't we go back? And do some searching again, using the steps that we used before. So I'm going to click on our icon up here at the top. Maybe, maybe not. There we go. So that took me all the way back to the beginning. So if you get in here, you get lost, you're not sure what window, and you want to start over, you can always click on our name and it will take you back to the beginning. So I'm going to type a request in the box. Okay, so I just wanted the population for, oh, that wasn't what I was actually, I typed the wrong thing. I'm sorry, that was not what I meant, but I'm gonna go with this, my mistake. So I was going to ask for the population. That was not what I was looking for, but it's showing you what I want to explain. Sometimes when you do a search, you'll get a box at the top that's highlighted. And so, especially when it's a kind of general request, then you'll get the information that most people are requesting. In this case, because I put in the wrong city, I don't know what I was thinking, it gave me the population for New Mexico. So it will highlight this as we really think this is what you need, or we really think this is the table you're looking for. It will also give you a profile, again, because it was a kind of general request that I did. So it gives me a profile of the state, but then it gives me related searches. So it's basically saying, we're not really sure, but if the first selection wasn't correct, here's some ideas for some other searches. Maybe you wanted to find out about health or income and poverty, and you didn't specify that. So it's giving you some other searches that you could do here. So I think that's kind of helpful. I really like that feature. because sometimes you are looking for something and like me, you make a mistake, you type in something else, and it kind of gives you some suggestions to kind of help you get back on track. Now, probably the more popular tables that people like to use are our data profile tables, our DP tables, and those are very handy to give you an overall picture of an area. And so, for example, here I see the first table listed is the ACS Demographic and Housing Estimates table. And this is DP table 05. So usually that's one of the first tables that's listed when you do sort of a general search. So this particular table gives you a lot of information about gender, age, race, ethnicity. And so if that's really what you're needing, this is an excellent table to use to give you an overall look of an area for those topics. And so I always remind people that if you do look at this particular table, and you're looking at the section, I'm going to scroll back up here. Under race, there are only 5 races that we are looking for when we are asking our questions on our surveys and census. So they have them listed here. And you'll need to pay attention to the indentions as well. So one race, white, black, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islander. And then as you scroll down, you'll see 2 or more races, and sometimes you'll see 3 or more races where people might have written in a combination. And so we need a bucket to put those responses in, and that's where we come up with 2 or more, 3 or more, those other buckets to kind of make sure we have a place to include everyone. Then as you scroll down, you see total population, and then you see the 5 races, and then you see some other race. And a lot of times people will include an ancestry or something else that they list there. And so again, that's the bucket for those answers. But if you're wanting to make sure that you get the total for everyone, including everyone, you need to scroll down to the section that says Hispanic or Latino and race. If you're looking at just the race section, it is just those 5 races, not people who indicated that they were, their ethnicity was Hispanic or Latino. And so
Susana, I'm just going to mention something here because I've been playing with the race data for New Mexico. And in New Mexico, some other race category is much higher than if you look at the race, some other race category for other parts of the country. And the reason that is that so many people identify as Hispanic more than any race category. And so just note that typically people in New Mexico, when we're looking at race categories, I just tell them to go right down to Hispanic or Latino, because really what we want to talk about is New Mexico has the highest percentage of Hispanic people in the nation by far. I mean, even California is like second to us by 15 percentage points. That's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yes, I'm mentioning this because I get calls or people call and say, you know, I've added all these numbers and they're not jiving, they're not adding up to the total of the population. And so if you want to be inclusive, then you do look at the section for Hispanic or Latino and race. And those numbers will add up to the total population for you. And this particular table, also at the very bottom, has citizen voting age population. That is something that we didn't always ask, and we are asking that now. And so that was put in this particular table. We do have tables DP 03, which is having to do with anything related to money, whether it's business, I'm sorry, employment, um, uh, unemployment, different occupations, industries, uh, the way you travel to work, all of those related to working, making money, income, family, uh, all of that is under the DP03. Then DP04 is housing data. Even though we do collect a lot of data for HUD and give that data to them and they disseminate that on their website, we do still have a lot of housing data ourselves that we disseminate. And so for an area, if you were just concentrating on housing, anything related to housing, that would be DP04. And then of course, this is DP05. And then we have DP02, which is several different topics, education, ancestry, those types of topics that are listed there. So those tables, those 4 tables, really are the best tables when you don't know an area or you want a really good picture by the numbers to look at and see what that area looks like. Any questions at this time?
So could you go over how you can just copy and paste the URL once you find the geography you're looking for to share it?
Yes. Hold on just a second. I apologize. I keep getting a catch in my throat. Yes, so let's say this table. I thought I had an area here. I was going to try to. Hold on 1 second here. So when you're doing your copying, are you copying from here or the actual address up at the top?
So once I find my data in a table and I've got all the geographies that I want, I'll copy and paste that URL. And then later on, even if I need a different table, it's got the geographies I want, I can just go straight back to that full URL.
Right.
And then just change the table I'm looking for. That way I don't have to put in all the geographies again. That's my quick tip.
Yes, very true. Let me see if I can. Okay. So there we go. I And I don't know if I'm old school or what, I still prefer to download tables and save them myself. So I really don't do this, but you're right. Especially, I do use this to send tables to data users. But for a while there, this feature wasn't working really well. So I was still suggesting people download the tables, but I was kind of worried that it wasn't going to work this time, but thank God it did. So any other questions? Really, this was sort of a very basic run through, and I can certainly go individually for people who have their own issues or searches. That's covering what I was going to cover today. Is there anything else? Any questions?
You know, one of the things I know that I've had problems when I'm working with this is moving from 1-year estimates and 5-year estimates. So you may be trying to build a whole bunch of geographies that you want to look at. You want to look at statewide, you want the county, you want the county subdivisions, and then you want all the places. But if you start with 1-year estimates, you'll get the state and you'll get the county, but all of a sudden your geographies, your county subdivisions are too small for the population thresholds on the 1-year ACS estimates. And so just note as you're pulling these data, noting that, 1-year estimates are only available for areas with 50,000 people or more is going to really narrow down your search.
Yes. When it's multiple levels of geography, it's always much safer to just select the 5-year estimates to start with. And that will include all the geographies, especially if you're not familiar with the sizes of some of the different geographies, maybe in another state or area that you're not familiar with. So absolutely, yes, I agree. Going from one to the other, I truly use the 5-year estimates pretty much for everything. Even for areas that I know have the population, that I could pull up the 1-year, unless I'm wanting the 1-year data specifically. I pretty much use the 5-year, but that's only because of what I'm working with. And I know that doesn't work for everyone, but yes, that is correct.
So there's a good question. When do you expect the 2020 census tabulations to be available in data.census.gov?
I felt like somebody was going to ask that question. So obviously, we're working really hard to get the data out. By the end of the year, we have to have the nation's population on the president's desk. And then it sort of filters down from there to the states, the governors and their totals. And so it normally takes us about 2 years to disseminate our data from a decennial census. I'm not sure that it's going to go that way this time. That's a personal observation because of delays, and obviously COVID, shut us down for a while, and there were a lot of things that were different about this decennial than any other that we've had in the past for many reasons. And so, I mean, as soon as they have that out, I've heard a lot of different things, but I'm not going to share any of those because I don't know that that's the gospel. But we are working really, really hard to get that, to stay, to get back on track the way we normally would be.
Susie, can I help you with that? This is Pauline.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Pauline.
So as far as 2020 census data, what we have said publicly, and of course, everyone knows that there's a Supreme Court ruling on November 30th. but we are doing the data. So we have separated apportionment to redistricting data. So the apportionment data, we're trying to get as close to December 31st as possible. Is what our public is, what we're trying to do. And then as far as apportionment, which goes down to each congressional district, that's more timely. So we are looking at, we don't have any definite dates yet. And so traditionally, it has been the first PL tables that people look for. Traditionally, they have come up in April, but as Susie said before, there's been delays, as everyone knows in New Mexico, there's been delays. And so, and across the country. So right now, what we're just saying is to be determined as far as the more, those PL tables that people really look at. But right now we're looking at the state population data coming very close to be on the president's desk. But again, that's also, there's all kinds of litigation going on, but the most important one is the November 30th.
Thank you, Pauline. That was more than I was going to say.
Well, and I certainly know that we've all been anxiously awaiting, and we will continue to be anxiously awaiting for the 2020
Yes.
data.
Yeah, we're all anxious too. We want to see it too. So yeah, and I'm sure we'll be pretty busy after that happens with the new data. So I'm really excited to see what all that is and help everyone with that. And I really encourage you to use data.census.gov. This was very basic, I know, but this tool, you almost have to kind of get in and start using it. I've talked to people that are sort of fearful, but I know it's because it doesn't look or it doesn't seem, or maybe they are some users that maybe don't use data that often, so they're not as comfortable. But there are quite a few things are working out. And again, I ask your patience over the next couple of years. And I think that more people will get more comfortable with it, because this will be the place to get the 2020 data. As I said, moving forward, from this point forward, anything we release is released on data.census.gov. So that will be the place that you have to go to. Now, if you're wanting historical data, and as a matter of fact, let me see here, I believe, let me go back here. Under, yes, under frequently asked questions, I meant to show you this in the beginning and I completely forgot. I reference this a lot when people call, what data are available. So if you're really not sure, you get in and you still can't find something, this table is very helpful to see exactly what's included on data.census.gov, and then the vintages that the data is available. Now, originally, when the tool came, when the site came out, they said they were not going to go back and add anything from before this period of 2010. But now they're saying they may go back and add some historical data. I don't know if that's really going to happen. It made me happy to hear that, because I'd like to see that. But again, that's something that they've said publicly. So I'm not spilling the beans on anything. And so there's a possibility they may reverse what they first said about that. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, because that would be really nice, because it is confusing for data users to go in and expect to go back and maybe not find everything that they were looking for. But our historical data page is see here. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find that. You go to Library tab on census.gov. Then you go to Publications. And then you think of the year. I may have to go back to my link.
Oh, I was hoping you'd find it because I always have to use the search for it.
I know. And that's why I keep it bookmarked, because I can never remember how it starts. Gosh, I don't think I have the bookmark here. No. It'll be in the link that I'm going, the email that I sent you, Susan, has the
Okay.
link to this to get it to you directly, because it's not, and I'm sorry, it is not easy to find. It's buried. Let's just be quite honest about that. It is buried, but it's an important link that you need to bookmark so that you can go back and see data, you know, from the 1960 census or the 1980. And let's face it, at some point, somebody has to have that data. So it's included in an email that Susan can send out those links to you. I apologize.
I will.
This is why you need the link and you need to bookmark it. Because I can never remember how it starts out. And and can you imagine if you're looking for it, you don't have any clue. So that's not good. So anyway.
So two caveats on the historical data. The historical thing at least gives you all of the publications, but it's not necessarily in digital tabular format. But there are websites that I have a list of that do have historical data available in digital tabular formats. And so if you need that, get a hold of me and I will definitely send you that link or those.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, some are scans and then some are Excel, and then there's all kinds of things that you run across in there, which is better than when I started, because I had to look data up in a book off of a shelf and find the page and copy it and fax it to the data user. So we really have come a long way, baby, but sometimes it doesn't seem like it. So yes, it's unfortunate, but that is the case. But that's what I have to share with you today. So I hope that helps some of you.
Thank you, Susana. It's been helpful for me. And, you know, I just know I still struggle with it. So I know a lot of my data users do too.
Yes, I know. I struggle with it myself. And I have to go back and look at release notes all the time to kind of get myself updated on that. So.
All right. Well, let me just real quick, I will be posting this presentation to our YouTube channel. So it'll be available for all you guys. And the next session is tomorrow morning with, let me see, I believe it's Wednesday, and I believe it'll be Mike with Geography. And I'm going to remember his name in just a second. Mike Radcliffe, and he's going to talk about GIS and 2020 Census Geographies, what's changed and what has stayed the same. So we will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning.
Right.
Thank you, Susana.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.